Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Your Excellency, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Chief Adu Ogbe, Minister of Agriculture. It's nice to see you here. Mr. Abdallah Hamdok, Dr. Hamdok, the Acting Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. Mr. Adeyeye, Director, Regional Bureau of Africa for the United Nations Development Program. And of course, our distinguished Nobel laureate economist, Professor Eric Maskin from Harvard University. You're welcome. Please put your hands together for him. Distinguished guests, distinguished professors, I can see all of you here, colleagues from the bank. I see the ambassadors from France and several others that are here. Soyez le bienvenu. Your Excellency, Mr. Vice President, I would like to express to you my sincere appreciation for your taking the time to be here this morning. I am obviously very aware of the very tight schedule that you operate. And in fact, because he's not supposed to be actually here, he's supposed to be in Kano already in the air. But he told me that because he was going to be talking about tomatoes in Kano, he has to be here and tell you about tomatoes so that by the time he's back, he can offer you dinner with some tomatoes on it. So he's done a fantastic job this morning. Thank you very much. Let me welcome you all to this African Economic Conference being held in Abuja that has just been declared open by His Excellency, Mr. Vice President. Unlocking the potential of agro-industrial development all across of Africa is what this conference is all about. The choice of Nigeria to host this conference is significant, as you have heard very eloquently from His Excellency, Mr. Vice President. It is the most populous African country with enormous potential in agriculture, as he has also described. If well managed and sustained, Nigeria, I have no doubt, has the potential to become a global powerhouse through agro-industrialization. I am also delighted that Nobel Prize economist Professor Eric Maskin of Harvard University is here with us. He arrived just yesterday for this event, and immediately after this event, Nobel Prize winners are not easy to get. He'll be traveling straight away to Russia to give another talk. I look forward to hearing your thoughts as well on Africa's agricultural industrialization. Agriculture, which contributes over 28% of the GDP of Africa, holds the key for accelerated growth and diversification and job creation for African economies. No region of the world has moved to industrial economy status without passing through the transformation of the agricultural sector. The reason is simple. Agriculture provides the basic raw materials needed for industrial development. Food accounts for the highest share of consumers' price index, and providing cheap food is crucial for taming inflation. When inflation is low, interest rates decline, and it brings greater private sector investments. A more productive, efficient, and competitive agricultural sector is critical for boosting rural economies where a majority of the population live in Africa. Therefore, a more prosperous rural economy will drive jobs and accelerate rural savings, critical for inclusive growth. In short, the future of Africa depends on agriculture. I'm sure nobody would be very happy to hear that than Chief Ogbe, who is the Minister of Agriculture. So I might as well put a pitch in, Mr. Vice President, for his budget to be increased so he can do more. However, the performance of the sector in Africa has been low. Cereal yields and use of modern farm inputs, including improved seeds, mechanization, and irrigation, fall way below global average. The sector is still dominated by a large number of subsistence farmers. It suffers from low levels of public investment, including access to finance for farmers and agribusinesses. To be clear, agriculture has largely been seen as a development sector for managing poverty, not for creating wealth. Yet, Africa sits on a huge potential in agriculture. It is estimated that 65% of all the uncultivated arable land left in the world that would feed 9 billion people by 2050 lies in Africa. So, what Africa does with agriculture will also shape the future of food globally. Africa today spends $35 billion annually importing food. As it does, it decimates its own agriculture. It spends scarce foreign exchange importing what it can and what it should produce. It exports jobs and makes itself subject to price effects from global commodity supply shocks. Estimates show that food and agribusiness sector is projected to grow from $330 billion today to $1 trillion by 2030. The key is to unlock this opportunity. And it must start with treating agriculture as a business. It must start with taking a full value chain approach to modernize agriculture from the farm to the table. And it must start with supporting agro-industrial development. The time is therefore short, but not now. Korea's per capita GDP is now 17 times that of sub-Saharan Africa, while its total GDP is $1.3 trillion compared to $1.6 trillion for sub-Saharan Africa. Korea today is the 11th largest economy in the world. Think about it. And is a generous donor of development finance. It is such an extraordinary success story. But it wasn't a miracle. It came from many factors that came together: strong political commitment and determination, solid long-term planning and execution, structural transformation policies, and robust investments in human capital. There was a clear plan: drive import substitution by raising agricultural productivity through industrialization to achieve food self-sufficiency. More generally, the successful Asian experience offers us today important lessons for agro-industrialization. Today, Asia's agricultural output is led by large private agribusiness enterprises engaged in industrial agriculture, and you heard from the Excellency Mr. Vice President about Nigeria's effort to drive in that direction. Agricultural output per worker has risen in Asia by an average of 2.2% per year from 1980 to 2010, compared to only 0.6% in sub-Saharan Africa. There is no denying the fact that without the Green Revolution, Asia could not have become the industrial and economic giant that it is today. This is the formula. Agriculture, allied with industry, manufacturing, and processing capability, equals strong and sustainable economic development and wealth creation throughout the economy. Africa must not miss opportunities for such linkages whenever they knock at the doors. Let's take the case of the current decline in commodity prices. This is not the first time that such events will occur. But whenever they do occur, African countries always sing the same song: we need to diversify. Well, diversification is not a goal. It is the outcome of well-planned policies for the structural transformation of economies. When I was minister in Nigeria, we moved aggressively on import substitution with the use of cassava flour for use as composite flour in bread making and confectionery industries. People laughed us to scorn, as you can imagine. Nigerians, they said, will never eat bread made from cassava flour. Well, unknown to Nigerians, flour millers, small, medium, and large, have now all shifted to partial substitution of wheat flour with cassava composite flours. So don't look for cassava bread. All your bread is now cassava composite flour based. The industry has shifted. The story is not just in Nigeria. As we speak, several countries have taken the homegrown policy right from here in Nigeria to help reduce their wheat imports, including Liberia, Togo, and Democratic Republic of Congo. In DRC, young graduate entrepreneurs from the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture have taken the business of cassava flour for bread and confectioneries. If you wish, you may laugh, but let me assure you, these young entrepreneurs are laughing their ways to the bank as we speak. On Friday last week, I had the pleasure of receiving a large delegation of these young agricultural entrepreneurs from IITA. A young graduate called Noel from Bukavu in DRC, Congo, together with his colleagues, have moved into agribusiness. In just a little over a year, they manufacture cassava flour, well packaged and standardized for bakers. Today, Noel and his team generate $4,000 per week. $4,000 per week, or $16,000 a month, or $196,000 a year. That means they are making 78 million naira annually if converted into naira at the official interbank market rate. They are already multi-millionaires. He that has ears, let him hear. The key for Africa's prosperity is value addition in agriculture, in turning our own local products into money, in looking inwards. Africa must feed itself. The technologies to feed Africa exist already. High-yielding, drought-tolerant maize can allow farmers to get a good crop in drought situations, and you know we are in a period of climate change. Cassava varieties can now get farmers up to 80 tons per hectare. High-yielding rice varieties that meet and beat international standards of imported rice now exist. And I want to particularly thank the Honorable Minister of Agriculture for the great work that's been done by him and the Central Bank of Nigeria on the Anchor program on rice production in northern Nigeria using those varieties. Please put your hands together for them. They're doing a great job. Orange flesh sweet potatoes that can allow us to address the problem of vitamin A deficiency now exist. Tropical and drought-tolerant wheat varieties are unleashing a wheat revolution in northern Nigeria, Kenya, and Sudan. What is needed is taking these technologies to scale, allow them to use all of these new technologies. We pursued this in Nigeria, and it worked very well. Using the power of mobile phones, Nigeria developed and used electronic wallet systems to deliver farm input support to farmers through electronic vouchers on their mobile phones. Nigeria became the first country globally to do so, and the impact was massive. Over 4 years, over 14.5 million farmers were reached. Impact on food production was massive, with food production expanding by over 21 million tons over the period. I'm particularly excited that the system reached 2.5 million women farmers. To be clear, the system was a bottom-up fiscal stimulus that touched multiple parts of the economy: seed companies, fertilizer companies, agro dealers, banks, transport and logistic companies, and mobile phone companies. We need these kinds of bottom-up fiscal policy support for farmers in Africa everywhere. Today, several African countries are adopting this approach, even as far-flung as in Afghanistan. I am very pleased that Nigeria will be continuing this program, and just before I entered this particular hall, I was in discussion with the Minister of Agriculture, who told me of the success they are having in the north, and in fact how much of the food is now leaving Nigeria because they are continuing to support farmers. It is very critical that we ensure more rapid and inclusive bottom-up growth while promoting private sector and bank financing into the agriculture sector. To take new agricultural technologies to scale, the African Development Bank will soon be launching an $800 million initiative called Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation, otherwise called TAAT, with the goal of reaching over 40 million farmers over 10 years. We must equally reduce the food system losses all along the value chain, from the farm, storage, transport, processing, and marketing. Professor Oshibajo, I know that you are a lawyer. I didn't realize that you have become such an expert in agriculture the way you explained the value chain for tomato just this morning. Food and agribusiness companies have little incentives to set up in rural areas. Poor infrastructure, especially the lack of access to electricity, roads, rail transport, and water, drive up their cost of doing business. What is needed is the development of large staple crop processing zones and agro-industrial zones, enabled with infrastructure such as power, water, and roads. This will drive down the cost of doing business, as well as significantly reduce post-harvest losses all across Africa. The African Development Bank will invest in the development of these staple crop processing zones and agro-industrial zones. The experience from Asia, especially China, on such special economic zones have a lot to offer to African countries. Africa must turn agriculture into wealth and move out of exporting basic raw materials. Times are changing. So are the opportunities. For example, where global firms source their apparels is changing rapidly today, due in part to rising industrial wages in China, security and political uncertainties in leading suppliers such as Turkey and Bangladesh. This presents a unique opportunity for Africa to take its place in the global textile and apparel value chains. Because of cotton production in Africa, it is possible to go from cotton to textile and to garments in one single place, an advantage Asian countries do not have. These present excellent opportunities for vertical integration. Ethiopia has achieved remarkable success with industrial parks for cotton, textile, and garments. Today, as we speak, some 20 global companies are engaged on developing its cotton, textile, and garment sector. Ethiopia expects to make $1 billion a year from textile and garments from just one industrial park, and they plan to do 14 of them. Africa, ladies and gentlemen, should be exporting processed cocoa, not cocoa beans. It should be exporting specialized ground African coffee instead of generic coffee beans. And it should be exporting finished textile products such as clothes, suits, dresses, shirts, not cotton lint. The remarkable progress of Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, Ethiopia, Tunisia, and Morocco on the global horticulture industry shows that with well-designed policies, financing, and infrastructure, Africa can climb to the top of global value chains. We must also solve the challenge of access to finance, to expand access to finance for farmers and agribusinesses with commercial financing. Risk-sharing instruments will play a crucial role in this with regard to sharing risk of lending with commercial banks to the agriculture sector. Finance and farming, I'm sure the Minister of Agriculture will be the first to tell you, have not always been great partners. Agriculture, with all the share of the economy it has only 3% of the total bank lending that we have in Africa today, and that's not possible. That requires that we look for innovative approaches. Don't look further, just look at what Nigeria has done. When I was here with the Central Bank of Nigeria, 5% within 4 years. The lesson, ladies and gentlemen, is clear. Development finance institutions and multilateral development banks like ourselves should be setting up national risk-sharing facilities in every country to leverage agricultural finance into this sector. To drive agro-industrialization, we must be able to finance this sector. Doing so will unlock the potential of agriculture as a business on the continent. That is why, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, under its Feed Africa strategy, the African Development Bank will invest $24 billion into agriculture and agribusiness over the next 10 years. And you can understand why. I am president of the bank, and I happen to have an agricultural background. Our goal is simple: support massive agro-industrial development all across Africa. To make this happen, there is need for well-directed public policies to incentivize the agricultural sector, especially agribusiness and food manufacturing companies. And when this happens, Africa will have turned the corner and taken its rightful place as a global powerhouse in food and agriculture. Now our task is to make it happen, and I have no doubt that we can. Thank you very much.